Hello, sportsmen. It's the 27th of January, the year 2000. It has gotten very, very chilly out. I thought I might as well show you a trip I took at the beginning of this month, which kind of echoes the weather we've had at the ending of this month. We've had a lot of fronts moving through. We're going to learn about that in the guide report, how that affects the fishing. But I have outdoor news and a lot more, so you stay tuned. I'm Trost. You're watching The Practical Sportsman. Did you miss it? I missed it. I missed it. Oh.
We got high winds. You'll have to be escorted across. Pull right in behind that semi, and they'll come over and get you with an escort. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We left Lansing with no snow and arrived at the Mackinac Bridge in a blizzard. It was windy on land, but nothing compared to the wind from the Straits of Mackinac that howled over the bridge.
There you go.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
We'll try. It was 11:30 p.m. and time for bed. We pulled over in the motorhome, kicked on the furnace, and slept comfortably as it snowed. We were on the road again at 7 a.m. Never did see the sun come up. The storm continued as I made my first trip of the new millennium to Gladstone, staying in a motorhome even though it is winter. I had people to see and things to do, like ice fishing on Little Bay to Knock. So it's a strategy.
The strategy is to let them take it until it starts spinning again. That way you know for sure he's got a hold of her.
Troy Burnson was talking about the spinning shaft of the polar tip-up. The spool of fishing line is under the water where it won't freeze up, and you know a fish is running with the bait when the shaft is spinning. Now, not wanting to spook the fish, Troy gives a few extra turns of the shaft to slacken the line so the walleye won't feel any resistance. Then, his years of experience let him know the precise moment to set the hook. His years of experience also let him know that we aren't always as smart as we think. Did you miss it? I missed it. I missed it. Oh, man. The punishment for missing a fish and losing the bait is using your already ice-cold hands to dip into the ice-cold bait bucket and pull out an ice-cold minnow to rehook the tip-up. The tip-up, of course, is a fishing mechanism you don't hold in your hand like a rod. It's a freestanding spool of line that trips a spring. When the spool moves, lets you know a fish is probably running with your bait. That way you can sit in a nice warm ice shanty and watch for the flags to pop up. Sometimes the action is fast and furious, and other times, like today, on the heels of a blizzard, the fish are only feeding now and then. The shanty that Troy shares with a few other friends is a deluxe job, one built to withstand the sub-zero temperatures of Little Bay to Knock. Now, my buddy, Tim Farragon from Langsburg, was already inside where it was warm, and feeling the cold air when the door opened and seeing us covered with snow brought a smile to his face. Troy and I repeated the trip to the tip-up several times, but each time the walleye made off with a minnow. Still fun, though, because fishing in a shanty is like having a fort when we were kids. It's a warm, comfortable place to be with friends. Of course, the key to the comfort is the LP gas bottle in the heater. It warms you when you're cold and prepares you for some of the cold tasks that lie ahead. The ice was over a foot thick in this bay. Plenty of support for a truck. The problem was not the ice, it was the snow and the slush on top of the ice. You might remember the time I got a pickup camper stuck in the snow. Well, that truck only had power to one front wheel and one rear wheel when it was in four-wheel drive. Troy Burnson's truck has the Positraction type drive that can shift power to whatever wheel needs it. Now, that's an option that is well worth it if you're planning to use a truck in deep snow. Getting stuck out into a place like this would be no fun at all. But if it's not your truck and somebody else is paying for the wear and tear, it is fun to try to drive through tough country like this. The ruts and slushy snow can give you a thrill ride like a mud bog in the summer. It can be a real hoot.
A little beady knocking.
Yeah, maybe.
So far, this trip to Gladstone has been a rough introduction to the winter of 2000. Not every day in the UP is a blizzard, though. The winter can be peaceful and beautiful, especially at sunrise. The backlighting shows the steam rising from pressure cracks on Little Bay to Knock. Now, these are small cracks, no safety hazard. The water that squeezes through the cracks turns to steam in the morning sun, like the steam from a shanty with a fisherman who got there before dawn. Now, I mentioned that fishing from a shanty is like having a fort, the kind we had when we were kids. That's part of the allure of ice fishing. That's also a part of the fun of making an elaborate deer blind, getting away to our fort. And frankly, that's the same kind of fun I get from traveling in a motorhome. It's a fort on wheels that may not have running water in the winter, but for sleeping and cooking and watching TV and lounging and sightseeing, an RV in the winter is great. On our return trip from Gladstone, the morning sun gave us a far different perspective of the landscape and waterscape than we saw 4 days earlier when we trudged along US 2 during the blizzard. Sitting at home, watching the yellowish-orange rays of the sun coming up over Lake Michigan on this videotape gives you kind of a warm feeling. But to be there, holding the camera, trying not to shake when the wind chill on my fingers seemed like 100 below, I tell you, it was anything but warm. It was warm in the camper, though, and I was glad to be able to see the beauty of the winter on a day that was more user-friendly than when we drove up. Instead of being escorted across the Mackinac Bridge during a winter gale, on our way back, we can enjoy it the way tourists do, looking at postcards. I know this isn't fishing and hunting footage right here, it's more like a travel log, but I couldn't help it. I go over this bridge on the average once a month maybe, and it's always different. There are usually freighters or big boats coming or going through the straits, which are always interesting to watch for some reason. But in the winter, when they bash their way through the ice floes, it's even more fascinating. Now, this ice isn't frozen solid yet. It's more like a sea of huge ice cubes that the boats push their way through. How cool it would be to see an icebreaker chopping its way through the straits. Maybe I'll get to see that on another trip later this winter. Now, even though it looked like a much different day on this Friday than when we came through in the blizzard the previous Monday night, Michigan weather is not to be trusted, not even as far as you can see. But because the sun was right, we stopped on the Mackinac City side of the bridge and went to that traditional scenic viewing area where everybody takes pictures of the bridge during the summer. We got our postcard shots, then started south on I-75 where we found a surprise. Here we go again. 40 miles south of the Sunshine as we crossed into Otsego County, it looked like the Yukon. Talk about your Michigan weather. It's something, isn't it? And you caught this Chinook where?
Just north of Frankfurt. The wife and I went out in the morning. She did not want to get up at 5, so we left about 8. And I caught this about 11. We fought it for 25 minutes. I took 7 stabs at it with a net, and it wouldn't go in the net. It was 41 inches long.
Maybe you shouldn't have taken stabs at it.
Well,
I mean, there's a certain thing with netting, that a technique, stabbing is not really...
It gets halfway in, then it falls out.
Ooh!
Well, on the 7th try
The
for
7th
it,
stab?
I kind of hooked the spoon. So I pulled it up to the boat, and I reached down with my hand and gilled it and pulled it in.
So you hooked the spoon with the net?
Yes.
You're darn lucky.
Tell me about it.
7 stabs hooking the spoon and all?
Yep.
That's outstanding. That's a 29-pound Chinook salmon.
29 pound, 4 ounces.
That's and for the middle of June, think how big it would have been
Right,
in August.
right. We think about that too. It's probably been a good 30-something. It's a big male.
The way you were going, I wouldn't be surprised if you were out there for 2 months trying to net it. Could have added some weight. Well, congratulations, Norm. What a story. Last week, I showed a deer head the taxidermist Tim Hayes had just finished in the museum. He ended the job with a shot of furniture polish. Now, this seemed odd to people who asked me for more information. Believe me, They were as surprised as I was. Here's the whole sequence as it unfolded. Done, eh?
Yeah, I just gotta put some furniture polish on it.
Some what?
Furniture polish.
On the deer?
Yeah. Right here.
Where? Pledge? Now, how does that work on the deer?
Well, not only does it make the deer smell really good, but it stops the hair from drying out and it helps repel the dust. Deer hair is hollow and it breaks rather easy, and over a period of years, it gets really, really brittle.
I thought maybe you were going to put that just on the antlers.
Well, you put it on the antlers too, and it helps give them a polish without a shine. You've seen deer done years ago where they varnished them or shellacked them, and they're real shiny. And that's not how an antler's supposed to look. It's supposed to look just kind of fresh and not shiny, but rather dull. And it will help stop the antlers from drying out. If you've ever seen an old rack that has little hairline fractures in it, it's just because it's dried out. Well, the furniture polish takes care of all that problem. So you want to keep it off the eyes and off the nose because it will dull that finish. You can use Windex on the eyes and just a feather duster on the nose, and pretty easy to maintain as long as you do something periodically.
There you go. Tim's taxidermy tips for maintaining a mounted deer head. For the hair, occasionally wipe it carefully with some aerosol furniture polish. For the eyes, keep them sparkling with Windex, and dust the nose with a feather duster. If you want to watch Tim work or ask him questions about taxidermy, he'll be at our Museum of Outdoor Collectibles Fridays from 10 to 5 and Saturdays from 10 to 4. You might even get to see him polish off a deer head. Well, that wraps up this meeting of the Practical Sportsman Club. We've covered a number of subjects here. We've seen some pretty frigid footage of a trip in the winter in an RV still. It can be a lot of fun. That ice fishing, though, boy, that can nip your fingers, and you got to watch the ice. Even though it's been very cold, there's pressure cracks and all kinds of tricky things out there. So don't ever let your guard down. Always be careful, but enjoy yourself outdoors. It's a great place to be. I'll see you next week. We got our postcard shots, then started south on I-75 where we found a surprise. Here we go again. 40 miles south of the Sunshine as we crossed into Otsego County, it looked like the Yukon. Talk about your Michigan weather. It's something, isn't it?